Hello and welcome once again to an ESO build guide. I'm Dying Legacy and this is the Mage Blade build, a stamina sorcerer for solo content. This is a melee only version of my storm range build, packing strong single target damage and survivability. This sorcerer doesn't even break a sweat when it comes to soloing veteran dungeons, arenas and overland content. This is a quick build guide. We'll be going over the race, attributes, Mundus stones, food, potions, gear, skills, passives and champion point slotables. The info will be minimal, so I'll only be going over what's necessary. However, do feel free to comment below if you'd like a full detailed guide or if there's anything I could do better. With the intro covered, let's go over the Mage Blade build. Starting with the race, it doesn't really matter what you use, it's an RPG. You play as you prefer, but if you're looking for suggestions, I'd recommend either the Red Guard if you're looking for more sustain, the Khajiit for extra critical damage, or an Orc for extra weapon damage. For the attributes, we are putting 64 points into stamina, and for our Mundus stone when we're doing solo content, we're taking the Lover Mundus stone for extra spell and physical penetration. When doing content as part of a group, we'll be taking the Thief Mundus stone for extra critical rating. For our food, we are taking the Artaeum Takeaway Broth to increase our health recovery, max stamina and stamina recovery. You can pick these up at a guild vendor or make it yourself if you have the recipe. This can be rather expensive to get your hands on, in which case the cheaper option is the Dubious Cameronian Throne. The stats are slightly lower and it doesn't give health recovery, but it's a very small difference, and overall it doesn't matter which one you use. For our potions, we are using Essence of Weapon Power, which grants us Major Brutality, Major Savagery, Major Endurance, and restores a little bit of stamina immediately. We'll be using these for those longer and tougher fights. We can grab these at a guild vendor or make them ourselves at an alchemy station. If you haven't got any on you at the time, you can always pop an Essence of Stamina instead. They'll give you Major Endurance and restore a little bit of stamina immediately. They might not be as useful or as powerful as the weapon power potions, but they are better than nothing, and they do drop from almost every mob and ad around Tamriel, so your bag will probably be full of them. Moving on to the gear now, we have the option to use a Maelstrom Greatsword and Payloader Ring on this build. They aren't necessary by any means, and we have options in their stead, which we'll go over first. We are using 7 medium armor pieces on this build, all with divine traits and stamina enchants. For the jewellery, we're using the Bloodthirsty trait and weapon damage enchants. And for our weapons, we're using dual daggers for our front bar. Our main hand will be Nirnhoned with a poison enchant, and our offhand will be sharpened with a fire enchant. For our back bar, we're taking a two-handed greatsword with the infused trait and a weapon damage enchant. Moving on to the sets themselves now, starting with the body pieces, which are the chest, waist, hands, legs and feet. Our first choice is a Trial set, and it's the Arms of Reliquant set. This set is gotten from Cloudrest, and on veteran difficulty you can get a perfected version which adds extra stamina to the set. It's a minor increase compared to the unperfected version that you get from normal difficulty, so it doesn't really matter what version you use, just grab what's easiest to get. The set itself gives us critical chance, minor slayer at all times, and our light and heavy attacks add a stacking damage over time effect to our targets that lasts up to 5 seconds and stacks up to 10 times. If you haven't stepped into a trial or want to use something else, you can use the Sovigans Warband set, which is gotten from the DLC dungeon Frostfold. This set adds critical chance and offensive penetration, and when you deal critical damage, your critical chance will increase for 5 seconds and can stack up to 10 times. At max stats, you'll gain minor force. If you're looking for a little more healing, you could also go with Briarheart, which is gotten from Wrothgar overland content, such as delves, world bosses and public dungeons. You can also pick it up at a guild vendor. Briarheart comes with critical chance and maximum stamina, and when you deal critical damage, your weapon and spell damage increases for 10 seconds, and during this proc you'll heal when you do critical damage. For our weapons and jewellery, we are going with the Aegis Caller set, found in the Unhallowed Grave DLC dungeon. This set gives us weapon and spell damage along with some stamina recovery, and when we deal critical damage with a martial melee attack, we'll summon a Lesser Aegis that does AoE bleed damage every second for 9 seconds. We can also use the Pillar of Nirn set, which is gotten from the DLC dungeon Valkyrie Hold, which gives us max stamina, critical chance, and weapon and spell damage. And when we deal damage, you'll deal bleed damage to enemies near you and causing them to take bleed damage for 10 seconds. For our monster sets, for our helm and shoulder slots, we can use the Bloodspawn set. The helm can be gotten from Spindle Clutch 2 on Veteran, and the shoulders from the Undaunted vendors. This set adds stamina recovery, and when we take damage we have a chance to gain extra ultimate and to increase our resistances by 3601 for 5 seconds. Another choice is the Slimecraw set from Wayrest Sewers 1. Again, the helm from Veteran difficulty and the shoulder from the Undaunted vendor. Slimecraw adds critical chance, and it also gives us minor berserk at all times. Now, for the Ring of the Pale Order, which is gotten from the Antiquity system, and when using this, we'll heal for 20% of all the damage we do. Now, we can't be healed by anyone but ourselves, and the healing we do will decrease when we're in groups. The ring will take up a slot, obviously, so we'll need to wear our jewellery set on either our shoulder or our helm. The slot doesn't matter. We will lose our 2-set bonus from our monster set, but the Pale Order ring makes up for it. You can stick with Bloodspawn or Slimecraw for the 1-piece bonus, or you could also go with the Magma Incarnate set. The head is found in the Dreadcellar DLC dungeon on Veteran, and the shoulder from an Undaunted vendor. Magma Incarnate's 1-set bonus will give us Magicka and Stamina recovery, which is fantastic for our sustain. Lastly is the Maelstrom 2-handed sword, which is gotten from Maelstrom Arena, and we'll be using this on our back bar. There's a perfected version from Veteran difficulty, which adds extra offensive penetration. It doesn't matter which version we use, as we are more interested in the base effect, which is when dealing damage with critical charge, we cause enemies to bleed over 7 seconds. That covers the gear, and now it's time to move on to the skills. And starting with the front bar, our first skill up is Bound Armament, which is morphed from Bound Armor and is found in the Daedric Summoning skill line. This will cause our light and heavy attacks to summon a weapon for 10 seconds up to 4 times. You can reactivate the skill for half cost, causing the weapons to strike for physical damage every 0.3 seconds. And while slotted, it will increase our max stamina by 8% and our light attacks will deal 10% more damage. Next is Blood Craze. Morph this from Twin Slashes and it's found in the Dual Wield skill line. This will deal bleed damage and cause the enemy to bleed for 10 seconds and heals you over its duration. On to Crystal Weapon next. Morphed from Crystal Shard and found in the Dark Magic skill line. For 6 seconds, this will cause our next 2 light or heavy attacks to deal additional physical damage and reduces our target's armor by 1000 for 5 seconds. And after casting, our next non-ultimate used within 3 seconds will cost us 10% less. We're also using Consuming Trap, morphed from the Soul Trap and found in the Soul skill line. This deals magic damage for 10 seconds, and if the affected enemy dies, it will fill an empty soul gem and restore Magicka, stamina and health to us. Next is Summon Unstable Clanfair, morphed from Summon Unstable Familiar, which is found in the Daedric Summoning skill line. This summons a Daedric Clanfair to fight at our side. The Clanfair itself deals physical damage and is capable of AoE and single target attacks. While summoned, you can activate its special ability to heal yourself and the Clanfair. The Clanfair will remain until it dies. For the ultimate on the front bar, we are using Flawless Dawnbreaker, morphed this from Dawnbreaker, and you can find it in the Fighters Guild skill line. You'll deal physical damage to enemies in front of you and additional physical damage over 6 seconds, and after activating, will increase our weapon and spell damage by 300 for 20 seconds. Next, we'll move on to our back bar skills, and up first is Stampede. Morph this from Critical Charge, which is found in the 2-handed skill line. You'll charge an enemy and deal physical damage to them and nearby enemies. This is always a critical strike, and you'll also leave an AoE under their feet for 15 seconds that deals physical damage. And if we're using the Maelstrom 2-handed sword, it will also add an extra bleed to the enemies as well. Next is Carve, which is morphed from Cleave, which is found in the 2-handed skill line. You'll deal bleed damage to enemies in front of you and cause them to bleed for 12 seconds. Hitting an enemy again will increase the duration up to 30 seconds. This also gives us a damage shield. We're also using Razor Caltrops, morphed from Caltrops and found in the Assault skill line. This will create an AoE that does physical damage to targets standing inside and slowing their movement speed. Enemies that take damage this way have Major Breach applied to them. Next is Hurricane. Morph this from Lightning form and it's found in the Storm Calling skill line. You'll buff it nearby enemies with wind, dealing physical damage for 20 seconds, and the area size and damage it deals increases the longer the buff is up. While in this form, you gain Major Resolve and Minor Expedition. Next, we're using Summon Unstable Clanfair again, same as the front bar. The reason for this is because if you switch bars with a pet summoned, it'll unsummon if the ability isn't present on the bar, so we're making sure we have it up at all times. Now on to the ultimate on the back bar, and we are using Greater Storm Atronach. This is morphed from Summon Storm Atronach and is found in the Summon Daedric skill line. This will summon a Storm Atronach to the target location. The Atronach deals shock damage and stuns enemies for 3 seconds. The Atronach attacks the closest enemy, dealing shock damage every second. An ally near the Atronach can activate the Charged Lightning synergy, granting themselves and the Atronach Major Berserk for 8 seconds. That covers the skills. So let's quickly go over the passives, starting with our class passives. First up is the Dark Magic skill line. We want everything in here, so we're taking Unholy Knowledge, Blood Magic, Persistence and Exploitation. In the Daedric Summoning skill line, we want everything again as well, so we're taking Rebate, Power Stone, Daedric Protection, and Expert Summoner. And onto the Stormcalling skill line. Like the rest, we want everything again in here. So that's Capacitor, Energize, Amplitude, and Expert Mage. We're also using Dual Daggers, so we'll take everything in the Dual Wield skill line. There are Slaughter, Dual Wield Expert, Control Fury, Ruffian, and Twin Blade and Blunt. We are also using a two-handed weapon on this build, so we'll be taking everything in the two-handed skill line. This includes Forceful, Balanced Blade, Follow Up, and Battle Rush. We are using a full set of medium armor, so we'll take everything in the medium armor skill line too, which are Windwalker, Improved Sneak, Agility, and Athletics. Next up is the guild passives, starting with the Fighters Guild. In here we'll be taking Slayer, Banish the Wicked, and Skill Tracker. And next up in the guild passives is the Undaunted passives. In here we'll be taking Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. This next one is optional and can be found in the Assault skill line, and it is Continuous Attack. We only need to put 1 point into this to get Major Gallop. If we put in any extra point, we won't get any extra duration or any extra speed. It will just add to the Cyrodiil passives that comes with this, so just stick with putting 1 point into Continuous Attack. Moving on to the racial passives now. These are very specific to your race, so grab everything regardless, but do have a quick read over them just so you know what they do and what kind of benefits you get. And lastly, one more optional passive, which I would class as necessary, and it's Medicinal Use. This can be found in the Alchemy skill line, and this will cause our potions to last much longer and makes potions outlast their cooldown, so you can always have a potion active. And that covers all the passives on the Mage Blade build. So next up, we're going to go over the champion point slottables, starting with the Warfare tree. And in the Warfare tree, we will find Fighting Finesse to increase critical damage and critical healing. Deadly Aim to increase damage we do with single target attacks. Thaumaturge to increase our damage done with damage over time effects. And Master in Arms to increase our damage done with direct damage attacks. Onto the Fitness tree. In here, we will find Boundless Vitality to increase our max health. Fortified to increase max armor. Rejuvenation to increase our sustain. And Bloody Renewal, which will also increase our sustain when we kill an enemy. Next is the Craft skill line. Doesn't really matter what you take in here, everything is situational and it's very dependent on the individual. But for myself, when I like to do solo, I like to take Treasure Hunter to increase the quality items I find in chests, Rationeer to increase extra time on my food, Liquid Efficiency, this will give us a small chance not to consume a potion when we use it, and Steed's Blessing, which will increase our out of combat movement speed. That's my recommendation, but if you want, you can take anything at all. And that covers everything for the champion point slottables, and it also covers everything for the Mage's Blade build. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope it was somewhat useful to you, or helped you out with one of your own builds maybe. And if it did, why not like and subscribe? It helps me a lot and I appreciate any support I get. If you've any thoughts, suggestions, or just want to have a chat, comment below. I try my best to have a build up once a week, so I promise it'll be worth it, and I'm really good banter, I must admit. I also stream over Twitch, twitch.tv/dyinglegacy. We play a lot of ESO over there and do some variety content too, but mostly MMOs where I basically just swear and get trolled for getting lost all the time. So why not pop in and chat to me, and we'll have a laugh. Thanks again guys, you've been fantastic. I've been Dying Legacy, and until next time, stay awesome.